One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Y'all, it is officially here. Start a Binge-Worthy podcast is out in the world, and I am just so blown away by the support and encouragement and all the fantastic things that this community has done to show up for me during this book launch. I am so grateful. So if you are interested in learning more about my brand new book, Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast, a step-by-step guide to creating a podcast your audience craves, make sure you go order your copy at thebestpodcastbook.com. And while you're there, make sure you register for the free bonus that we have for anyone that orders the book. So again, go to thebestpodcastbook.com to grab your copy today. Okay, I am really excited about today's episode because I know many listeners in this community have launched their podcast within the last 6 months. And first of all, I just want to say congratulations, because I feel like I've been really celebrating a lot of recent launches from students of mine and members of the Potty People. And I just want to say a huge congrats for those of you that have launched your podcast in the last 6 months, and an even bigger congrats for those of you who have gotten past episode 15. I don't know if you know this. I say this all the time in our Potty People members group. I always say, just get to 15. 15 is the magic number to hit with your podcast, because there were studies done that most podcasts don't make it past episode 15. They go and die a slow, lonely death in the Apple Podcast graveyard. Wah, wah. I know, right? Like, that's pretty sad. It's really sad when you think about it. Like, those are the messages and the ideas that just, for whatever reason, someone just couldn't keep up with it. And it just I mean, y'all, this is my jam. Like, it just makes me so sad. All the podcasts that never made it to episode 15. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're not going to cry about it though, okay? Because that's not what we're talking about today. Like, we're acknowledging that some podcasts don't make it, but I'm here talking to you, the people that are actually interested in having a successful podcast. So, if you've been podcasting for at least 6 months, then you are going to find this episode today super, super helpful because we are going to talk about how to remarket old podcast episodes. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So I haven't done one of these in a while, but it's time for a question from the community. So a little backstory on why I do this and why this is just, I'm just like giving myself a pat on the back because it's so genius, right? Because people always ask me, Crystal, how do you keep a full content calendar? Y'all, it's because I'm always planning content. And today I looked at my calendar and I was like looking, because if you don't know this, I keep my content calendar in a Google Sheet. And anytime I come up with an idea, I drop it in this Google Sheet and I put some notes in there. And the title of today's episode is, how to remarket older podcast episodes to your audience. This is like, I'm literally looking at my Google Sheet right now, and it says this is for episode 199. And it says, make sure you mention the question from someone in our Facebook group. And I started looking and I was like, when did they ask this question? Because this is in the free Profit Podcast online community. This is our Facebook group for this podcast. And I had to go in there and use the little search function and find this question. Well, it is from 18 weeks ago. This is a old question, but it's still relevant. And that is how long ago I saved this content topic to talk about 18 weeks ago. And it is still relevant. So always be looking for the ideas, the next great thing that you can talk about on your podcast. So just a little behind the scenes thing, but now we're going to get into it. Okay, so first of all, show notes for this episode, crystalprofit.com/episode 199. Why is that important? Why am I telling you this? Because this is how the question started. So Polly, I'm going to give you a shout out because you asked this question several weeks ago. And she asked, what is the advantage of saying this is episode number ... fill in the blank. She said, I haven't been doing this and I'm about to post episode 8. So my response to her was, Polly, great question. The reason I say the episode number is people can find them in the show notes if they're looking for a particular resource or link. If you don't have your show notes set up that way, then skip this step. But I recommend having reference numbers so people can go back to other episodes. Now, that was like end quote. That was our conversation in the Facebook group. And I just thought, man, that's something we need to talk about here because the episode numbers that you have, there's a few different reasons why they're really important, but this is the main one, is I want to be able to refer someone back to a particular place and time. And let's be honest, when you go look for podcast episodes, you're not scrolling through looking for the dates. Like if I told you we published this on January 20th, 2019, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I got to scroll back that far. But if I tell you this was actually episode 158, then you would say, oh, okay, look, let me go find episode 158 and you can go find it wherever you listen to podcasts. And the reason I say episode 158 is important because we're going to talk about that in a second, but always say your episode numbers when you're recording, because that also gives someone like a frame of reference in how many episodes you have. As a podcast listener, I know I appreciate it when I'm listening to a show and someone's like, okay, this is episode 275 of the whatever podcast. I'm like, oh, they've been around for a while. That means I have 274 podcast episodes that I can catch up on. This is what, like, and maybe I'm just this geeky about podcasts, but I get excited. I'm like, man, this episode like blew my mind, changed my world. What other content do they have? So that's another reason why I like to mention episode numbers within my podcast. Now let's go back to episode 158, because this is about foundation episodes. If you listen to that podcast, it was all about what should you say in the first few episodes of your podcast. And it doesn't have to be the first few episodes, because if you listen to this show, the foundation episodes actually don't start until episodes 46, 48, and 50. And those are how to start a podcast, how to launch a podcast, and how to market a podcast. Those would be the foundation pillars of everything that I teach on this podcast. But if I didn't know those episode numbers, y'all, you would have a hard time finding them at this point. Here we are. We're episode 199, and I just told you about episodes 46, 48, and 50. You would say, Crystal, really? Like, I got to scroll back that far? Or I have to guess what the names of those particular episodes are and find them on your website or somewhere else? Like, it would take me forever. But because you have that reference point of a number, you know where to find them. So foundation episodes are basically, if you have a teaching process, let's assume that you are a coach of some sort, or you just have founding principles that your business is run on, and you want to make sure that you share those at some point on your podcast, you want to be able to point people back to those again and again and again. I know my mom and I, shout out mom, always give her a shout out. She has the Edible Gardens podcast, and she teaches about edible landscaping and about gardening. And so in the future, she didn't want to feel like she was having to repeat herself over and over again. And she doesn't have to. So if she's teaching about something that she's already done a podcast episode, she can simply say, okay, I'm going to talk about this. If you don't know what that is, go back to episode 27 and listen to whenever I explained it in more detail, but we're just going to talk about this one piece of it today. Does that make sense? Right? Like, you don't want to have to repeat yourself over and over and over again. You're going to get sick of hearing yourself talk. Your audience is going to say, oh my gosh, like she just says the same thing every single time. We don't want that. We want to have those reference points to send people and say, hey, we already talked about this. Go listen to that podcast episode and it will help you, and it'll have other things that I can't get into today, right here and now, but it is a very valuable piece of information that you need to look at. So that's one reason that they're super important. You want to have those reference points. So we'll call that number one. And I'm looking down at my notes. I'm like, I didn't actually number these, but we're going to call them number one. And I have 3 things to share with you today. So one is having a reference point for your episodes and being able to tell people how to go back and listen to a particular episode. The second thing that I want you to consider when you want to remarket your old episodes is bundling them together. There's a few different ways to do this. I haven't done this personally, but I have seen other podcasters that will take clips of, let's say, their most downloaded episodes, or again, like kind of like the foundation content of what they teach. Maybe they shared 5 principles in 5 separate episodes, but they want to condense it down and say, hey, let's take out the highlights. Let's get some snippets and put them into one condensed episode that just has the highlights from these different, whether they were interviews or solo episodes, and then you pair them into one episode. So it's not necessarily a new piece of content, it's a repurposed piece of content. So that's a way that you can bundle. But another way is you could tell your people, right? This isn't necessarily a new podcast, but it's more about, because we're talking about remarketing your old content, right? You could do an Instagram post. And I'm a fan of the carousel, like where there's multiple pictures. I've seen other podcasters do this, where they'll say, okay, if you want to know XYZ, right? If you want to know the answer to this common problem most people have that are starting on this journey, go listen to these episodes. And they'll have an arrow pointing that's like, highlighting, you got to swipe to go look at these pictures. And then they'll have a picture that lists one episode and it'll say, blah, 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 how to do this, episode number X. And then the next one will be, okay, this will teach you this and this. So it's almost like you're taking them on a journey through your podcast. And I'm going to tell you that I think that this is an awesome idea. I don't know why I don't do this more often, because I think I'm just constantly on the looking forward. But I had someone recently tell me, they're like, you have so much amazing free stuff that you need to start talking about it more, because it's like someone listens to it, and they're like, people that are brand new to this podcasting community don't know about all the incredible stuff that you have already. So you need to talk about that more. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I do need to do this. So I'm telling you this, and I want you to hold me accountable and say, Crystal, where's those carousel posts that you told us to do? Like, you haven't been doing them yourself, because I do want to start doing that more. So I want you to think about, this is the second reason, or second way to remarket old episodes, is I want you to think about how you can bundle certain episodes together that mesh really well, or maybe they have overlapping topics or stories or examples, or can just really help someone who is looking to get started or looking to continue on in the journey of what your podcast is really all about. Okay, and then the third way to remarket old podcast episodes, this kind of goes into what I was just saying, but think about repurposing them in different ways. I love a good piece of repurposed content. I mean, come on. It can go such a long way, and I cannot wait until I have someone dedicated on my team that this is their only job. This is their only job, is to take one piece of content and spin it into like 50 different pieces, whether it's social post or quotables. I love quotes from podcasts. And I know it's like just easy. I think it's because I did this with the book. Like, I grabbed so many quotes from the book to market on social media, to share in emails, and to put different places online, that I love the idea of taking quotes, like big key takeaways from your podcast interviews, your solo episodes, and sharing them out on social media. Like, I hope that you felt like I just gave you a gift, because if social media is a struggle for you every single month, then look at your podcast episodes and say, where can I take quotes? Where can I put these quotes out? Should I do like a simple graphic? I mean, come on, guys, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Go on Canva, grab one of their templates for quotes. They're constantly adding new stuff all the time. Grab your brand design and say, okay, I'm going to stick my branding colors on this. I'm going to use my branded fonts, and I'm going to start putting quotes out from my podcast, because that's going to get people more curious about my show. It's going to give you the ability to remarket your old content, because you're not doing this from scratch. You already created the podcast episode. You already have the content. You just need to go grab the pieces of it that your audience would like to see and be able to market that to even potentially a new audience and new listeners that you can bring into your world. So quotables is one. I like Pinterest. That's another one. I think, like I said, I can't wait till the day where I just have someone where that's all they do. They're like, where else do you want me to repurpose stuff? And I'm going to say Pinterest and YouTube and social media, and Pinterest and YouTube and social media, and like just on repeat, just keep on repurposing. They're just going to be the repurposer. That's actually what I'm going to call them. So if you're out there listening to this and you're looking for a job one day and you say, Crystal, I want to be your repurposer, there's a good chance you'll get the job. If you want to do it for free right now, you can let me know. If you're looking for an internship, like we can work something out, and we can talk about ways to repurpose stuff, because we can make this happen. So we got quotables, Pinterest, post on social media. The other one that I love.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Love, 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 because we talk about growing email lists, right? We've talked about it here on the podcast before. You can go back and listen to our previous episodes where we've talked about it. I'm actually planning content to talk about lead magnets and different ways that you can grow your email list with a podcast. But I love the idea of turning a podcast episode. Again, let's look at your most downloaded, most popular content and say, could I create a free resource from this? Whether it's a PDF guide, it's a quick video, or it's just an audio file, right? It's like an addition to whatever you've already created or just repurposing what you already have. Could you turn that into a free resource that will help you grow your email list? I love this idea. And if you don't already know, like I'm pulling back the curtain, okay? I am Oz. Wait, hang on. I'm the Wizard of Oz. Hang on. We're in Oz. Let me get my Wizard of Oz story straight, okay? Like I am the wizard. We're behind the green screen, the green curtain, and I'm just pulling all the things, and hitting all the levers and doing all the things. And I've done this multiple times. I've taken a piece of content and I created a free resource. So if you look at certain episodes, especially back in the beginning, and I say back in the beginning, back whenever the Profit Podcast was first rebranded, episode 46, 48, and 50 all have some sort of either free resource or a to-do of like, here are the 4 steps you need for this. Here's the 5 things you need for this. And what I did is I eventually created a resource for that, even though it doesn't say, like, I'm thinking of the launch plan. I don't know what episode that was. So how to create a launch plan for your podcast. That was originally its own episode, its own thing. And what I did is I was like, oh, why don't I create a free resource? Because people want to know my other ideas and stories that I have behind launching. Why don't I just create this quick little PDF? So you can actually go to crystalprofit.com/launch and grab a launch plan for free. And I created it from the launch episodes that I already did. So it's just another way, like going back to number 2, bundling everything together. That is another way to do that and repurpose it. And I feel like I need to change my middle name to Repurpose because, that's what I do all day, every day. Even today's episode, I repurposed a question that I got in my podcast Facebook community. And here we are today, 18 weeks later, talking about it. Like, guys, just get smarter about your content whenever it comes to what are you going to talk about? I just hear it all the time. What am I supposed to say? Every week, I don't know what to say. Get creative. Look at what your community is asking you. If you're saying, well, Crystal, I don't even have a community. Well, what have other people asked you about in the past? What do people email you about? What do they send you a DM about? What are they getting into your Messenger account and saying, hey, can you help me with this? Pay attention to those pieces of the puzzle because that is how podcasting becomes easier. That's how you get excited about it every single week. And you're not like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to talk about. You're like, I have so many ideas. I can't wait to talk about all of this content. Okay, I'm getting on my soapbox now. I felt the passion coming through on that one. So I need to calm down, bring it back to reality. We're going to do a quick recap. So again, this episode you can go to crystalprofit.com/episode 199 to see everything we talked about here today. Going back to, I kind of said that a little smart assy, right? It's like, okay, I said that because we've talked about why episode numbers are important. So this is episode 199. And I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/episode 199 to check out the show notes. So let's do a recap. Number 1, having those markers to send people back is super important. The relevant numbers are key to having people be able to go look at your old stuff. You need that marker that says, go to this episode number to go check it out. So that is number 1. Also, go listen to the Foundations episode 158. See, it makes it so much easier. Instead of just saying the Foundation episode, you're like, was that 6 months ago? Was that 2 months ago? Was that 2 years ago? I can tell you it's episode 158. It wasn't that long ago that we talked about this. The second way you can remarket old episodes is bundling them together. Take those snippets from your most popular episodes or bundle them together in different ways as you promote it on social media, to your email list, wherever you're promoting your content. And number 3 is repurpose that stuff in so many different ways. Do quotables, do Pinterest, post on social media, or turn them into a free resource to help you grow your email list. I want to see y'all growing your email list. I have been able to grow this email list for the podcast, for my business. And as people start coming into my world, they're listening to old episodes and I'm able to grow my email list. Y'all, I'm surprised all the time, because the way I have everything set up in ConvertKit, I can see where new subscribers are coming from. A lot of it is from my old content. Right? It's not the new stuff that I put out every week. It's the old stuff. So make sure that you have every episode of your podcast optimized for ratings and reviews, to grow your email list, to grow your Facebook community, whatever your goals are. Make sure that every piece of content is aligned with your goals. Whew, okay. We got through that. Like that was, I feel like very soapboxy today. And the Wizard of Oz thing kind of threw me off because I was ready to go after and then like follow the yellow brick road to getting this podcast content right. Okay. Oh my gosh, y'all. Thank y'all so much for putting up with my nonsense every single week. But we have to talk about, before we wrap this up, we are in the middle of a giveaway. We are literally on episode 199. We are celebrating episode 200 very soon. So go to crystalprofit.com/giveaway to make sure that you are entered because we have so many amazing prizes. We have signed copies of my brand new book, Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast. I'm giving away a one-on-one coaching session with a signed copy of the book. And then the grand prize winner, we're going to have one grand prize winner who gets access to my course, Profit Podcasting, as well as a one-on-one coaching session and a signed copy of the book. But this does expire on October 30th, 2020. So if you're listening to this at a later date, I'm sorry, you missed out. Maybe we'll have some other future giveaways. Actually, I know we will. I'm planning on it. Like, hee. I have like my hands up against my face like a little kid. There's a secret. I'm dropping a little hints here. But go register. crystalprofit.com/giveaway and make sure that you sign up. Check back for how you can enter to win over and over again every day. There are different chances for entries, but that's all I have for you today, guys. So I'll tell you one more time. The show notes for today's episode, crystalprofit.com/episode 199. And remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.